Another day of Russian airstrikes in Syria, the boldest action by Moscow in the region in nearly a quarter of a century, and a reminder of Russia's long-standing stake in the country. Moscow is backing Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and opposes anyone who threatens his rule. That includes some American-backed rebels that Washington suspects may have been the real target of this week's Russian strikes. For decades, the Syrian government has been Russia's only consistent Mideast ally and customer. Assad's survival is of vital interest to Moscow, but so is the defeat of militant Islam. For Russia, it's a reminder of past difficulties in Afghanistan and present hardships in Chechnya. Hundreds of Russian Islamists are said to be fighting in Syria against Assad. At some point, it's feared they'll head home. But it's the U.S. that's mostly striking against Islamic State positions. Washington opposes Assad and insists he must be removed from power. Seeking help, the U.S. has backed arguably moderate Syrian rebels. Washington fears a power vacuum in Syria could be filled by Islamic extremists, who it says would be worse for Syria than Assad ever was. So to defeat Sunni ISIL, the U.S. has been cooperating with Shia Iran. But Tehran backs Assad, its staunchest ally. It's provided his army with weapons and aid since the start of Syria's civil war. And Iran's proxy in Lebanon, Hezbollah, has joined the ranks of Assad's troops inside Syria. So have elite Iranian guards. That's worrying neighboring Saudi Arabia, the region's Sunni powerhouse and rival to Iran. Opposed to Assad and his government, Riyadh has been funding many of Syria's rebel groups, even ones that make the U.S. uneasy. This week, Saudi officials again rejected an outcome that could see Assad stay on and said they'll boost supplies to his enemies if a deal is not reached soon. Riyadh has also been conducting airstrikes against ISIL alongside the U.S., Jordan, and Gulf allies Qatar, the UAE, and Bahrain. And just days ago, France launched its own airstrikes in Syria, its one-time territorial mandate. The French oppose Assad, Islamic State, and extremist rebel groups. And then there's Turkey, Sunni like Saudi Arabia, but non-Arab like Iran. Ankara wants Assad gone, but has used its jets to bomb Kurdish fighters in northern Syria, part of its decades-long battle with that group. Israel at times has also struck in Syria. Not against Assad, not against ISIL, but it says to block weapons supplies headed to Lebanon, its northern neighbor. Israeli officials say Russia notified them an hour before its airstrikes. Largely to avoid misunderstandings. And that's one of the biggest concerns here. Syrian airspace is tight, and there are now lots of players in the sky. Most of them are not coordinating with one another, and at times disagreeing on targets. Analysts say the question is not if they'll clash, but rather when. Roee, Ruttenberg, CCTV in Washington.